I wasn't going to get up here by myself. However, this week, as we were kind of talking about everything, he wouldn't tell us anything. He said, I want you to just listen to the Holy Spirit, and so he gets no blame if there's anything that goes wrong with today. I'm going to have the ushers come forward and take our offering, and I just want to make a couple of announcements. Next Sunday, we're going to have a gentleman here from the Jewish Federation, and we'll have a light lunch, and then he's got some slides. He'll answer questions, but he's going to talk about, in Israel, the sacred places that are there that are sacred for the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Certainly with what's going on in the world today, I'm sure you have some questions about all of that. So if I could just have a quick, just raise your hand if you think you're going to come. We need to get some idea of how many people might be here. And then when you leave today, if you could just sign up so we make sure we have something to eat, okay? So that would be great. The other thing I wanted to announce is Guy Penrod. If some of you may know him from the Gaither Vocal Band, he is going to be here on the 25th, okay? So this information is on our Facebook page. So if you want to look at that and get tickets for that, you'll want to attend that. You guys need to come on up. What we're going to share this morning, myself, I'm Connie, I think everybody knows who I am, Kelly, and the twins, Tim and Tom. You know, it's always trouble when they're around. Pastor's been talking about fear, and he's going to continue that for a while. And we're going to talk, kind of expand on that today and talk about our own personal experiences with this. Our goal, our desired outcome is that when you leave today, you will be better informed, you'll be encouraged, and you may even start asking some questions. Okay? So I'm going to start off by having Tim share with us. Tom, I'm sorry. I do know which one is which.
Good morning. I've been sitting listening to people's stories for 34 years in an office, and I came up with a reality. Avoidance is the root of all of our problems. What you resist will only persist. But what's underneath avoidance behavior is fear. Now there's healthy fear and unhealthy fear. If you see a bear in the woods, if you see a rattlesnake, if you hear a strange sound in your basement at midnight, God wired us to have healthy fear, fight or flight, right? You don't want to go shake hands with a bear because it may not end well. Then there's fear that comes from two sources, either traumatic experiences, a mugging, a car accident, God forbid a rape. And there's also fears that we inherit up until the age of 7. Up until the age of 7, a child is in a trance-like state. So anything that it's told that it experiences, it goes in without challenging it, checking it out, evaluating it. And once it's in the amygdala, the back part of the brain, guys, it ain't leaving. I'll give you an example. I'm terrified of lightning at 63 years old. I mean, when it lightnings, my anxiety level goes from a 1 to a 10. I was never struck by lightning. He was, but I wasn't. So as I've looked at this, I remember my mom telling us when we got older, well, I was so afraid of lightning, but I never let you guys know. I got it, okay? So when it's lightning out, what do? I don't stay home. I want to. I go out and I just accept that I'm going to have some anxiety being out in lightning and thunder. Does that make sense? So you just learn to live with this. One thing that I've learned, and I'll share a couple of personal experiences in a bit here, is you have to feel the fear to get through it. I've looked, there's no other way around it, okay? Many people say, well, when I get the courage up, I'll go do it. No. Courage is at the end. The confidence, the feeling good about yourself. We've got to be willing to walk through the swamps with the alligators and that to get to the other side. So that's a different kind of fear that's just baked into us because of our wiring in that. The third kind of fear is the one that I think we all know about. It's called the boogeyman fear. We create our own boogeymen with our thoughts. This thing can create all kinds of disasters for me if I let it. It's always there to try to protect us. If I confront this person, if I ask this person for help, if I change jobs, you know, what if, and you go crazy. And then your anxiety level goes up, your immune system drops down, and that's why I think a lot of people that I've worked with that have illnesses, chronic illnesses, they're just living in a constant state of flight or flight. Now, there's a couple heroes I have biblically. One was a guy named Moses, and when that burning bush was telling him, you go back and save your people, there were two problems for Moses. One, he had just killed an Egyptian, and he knew he would be executed for that. And the other one is Moses had a speech impediment. It was pretty severe. So he's going to go into the court in front of Pharaoh and be talking like that. So his monkey brain, no, I can't do it. So what made him do it anyway? There was that thing that we know inside that's right to do things. If we let our fears paralyze us, we really don't live out God's plan for us. Okay? Second one was a guy that we all know, Jesus Christ. I'm going to talk about the human side of Jesus. That's the side of Jesus I personally can relate to. He was a human being that knew what was being set up for him. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he wanted to weenie out a little bit. Could you take this cup away? And Connie just informed us there is a known medical problem, I think it's called hemodrosis, where you can sweat blood. And so I Googled that yesterday, and they believe it comes from fear and anxiety. So when he was in the garden, he was terrified. He was afraid, but he still went and followed the plan that God had for him. I've had many of these experiences in my life. Back in around 1999, I'm walking around my beautiful house in Highland, and I was inspired. They said, sell it. What do you mean sell it? I like this place. Tim and I, we had our practice and everything. I had a booming business at the time. So I put it on the market. 3 months later, it was sold. And then they told me to close my 6-figure practice and move to Colorado. That's crazy. But I'm following the plan. One thing I've learned throughout my life is I feel the fear. You can't get away from fear. You're wired for fear. But don't let it paralyze us. And then there's been many, many other things, like when Tim and I went to Israel, there was a little bit of fear there because it's a little crazy there with terrorists, but I knew I had to go. Everybody in this room knows there's things they could be doing, but we let our, what I call the monkey brain, get in the way. What about this? Catastrophizing, making a disaster out of everything. What I've learned from my wonderful clients in 34 years is don't give in to it. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. Make friends with fear. The one thing I've learned is the more I embrace my fear, the less toxic it becomes. Do I enjoy fear? No. When they told me to jump, when I was 50 years old, I knew what that was. I weaned out of skydiving when I was 27. I just weaned out. I found a clever way to get out of it. Well, at 50, I heard the word jump, and I knew exactly what it was. So I've jumped out of 4 planes, and so far, so good. And a few other people in this room have done it with us. So the healthy fear is good. The amygdala fear that we inherit from past life experiences, meaning this lifetime, or things from your childhood. I had a friend named Kathy. She was terrified of spiders. It was crazy. That little spider was as big as a car to her. That was something pre-7 that she inherited from somebody. Those fears are just nothing you can do about them. Once they're in there, I'm always going to be afraid of lightning. I've just accepted that. But the fears that we can overcome to do what Moses did and Jesus did, and a lot of, look at Martin Luther King. He knew he was going to be dead by the age of 40. He's on record as saying that. They got him, but it didn't stop him. So if we let our fears get in the way, we're not going to live out God's plan for us, even if I don't understand it. And eventually you will if you're blessed. Speaking of fears, I know my brother's more afraid of public speaking than me probably, so I'm going to hand this off to him or Kelly. It's you.
He's going to be in fear a little bit longer. He's going to be scared a little longer. When I was a kid, I worried about everything. My mother called me a worrywart. And I remember one night, I'm in the bedroom, my mom and dad are asleep, and I'm standing by their bed, and I told them that I was afraid I was going to die during the night. So I was afraid to go to sleep. Thankfully, my parents didn't laugh at me. That probably came after I left the room. And they just said, well, Connie, what do you want to do about that? And I said, well, I thought I'd just stay up all night, you know. And they said, okay, just be quiet. Don't wake up your sister and brothers. And then I remember another time, my mother was ironing. I was probably 12. And I'm standing there talking to her, and I don't remember what I was upset about, what I was afraid about. But I was going on, and she said to me, you know, if you keep worrying like this, you're going to get an ulcer. So I went to my room, contemplated that for a while. I came back, now I'm crying, and she says, okay, what's wrong? I'm afraid I'm going to get an ulcer. So I was somewhat of a difficult child, I guess, with all of my worries. But I want to talk to you about how over the years, the different things that have helped me deal with this so that it doesn't consume me. When I was about 11 or 12, my dad was a pastor, and we didn't have a lot of money. And on Saturday night, as we were having family devotions, my father thanked God for the food he was going to send the next day, because there was none in the house. After church the next day, he was so excited. This was in the early 60s. We lived in a college town, had students that came to our church, and a student said God had told her to give my dad $20. I've never forgotten the impact of that God knew what we needed, talked to someone else, and supplied our needs. And my father's faith that God would take care of us, and he was thanking him before it ever happened. That was a great, that I've never been able to get away from that, and that has been comforting to me at many times. When I was in my early 20s, I decided that I thought I could manage my life on my own. It did not go well. 4 years later, with my life and pretty messy, I decided I was done being in charge. And I told God he had it all. Every decision, whatever he wanted me to do, I would do that. And that complete surrender began a real healing in my life. My mother had this life verse, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. She would say that to me many, many times. And that became like a life verse for me that I would quote often. Another thing that helped, we had a pastor that for a year preached from Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, about taking thoughts captive. And that was a real turning point in my life because I had a lot of bad messages playing over and over in my head. It was a discipline, and it took a good amount of time for it to become my first response instead of my third or fourth. But eventually, it began changing what I thought about myself, how I responded to other people, and brought just incredible healing. I also found out I had ADD. Got on medication. That really helped with my obsessive thoughts. That was, all of these things are from God. He uses doctors, he uses everything. And then I had a counselor ask me one time when I was very upset about something. It had been a trigger and it set off some episode in my life. She said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? This thing you're afraid of. And as I thought it out to its conclusion, I found out that the worst thing wasn't even as bad as the initial fear I had. So that became another tool in my belt, that when I get afraid of how something would turn out, I'd take some time and think, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it was never as bad as I thought it, could be. So I still have the tendency to worry. I'm a melancholy, so that's just kind of how I'm wired. But it doesn't consume me. And it doesn't stop me from following what God tells me to do. Sometimes we have to have a little discussion till I finally give in, but I know I am going to do what he wants me to do because his ways and his plans are so much better. So, oh, there, I forgot to put that one up, the worst thing that could happen. But I'm going to tell you, God can be trusted. We just need to lean on him some more.
Still avoiding.
Well, as of this morning, I can tell you that my monkey brain was working on overload, so I am lucky that I am even up here right now. And from the very beginning of my life, I've been overwhelmed with a lot of fears. I was a really, really quiet child. I wouldn't even look at you unless you spoke to me first. And I was very obedient. I wanted to do everything the right way for my parents and for God. I remember I was raised Catholic, so we attended the Catholic Church from the time I can remember. And I remember feeling close to God. I would have nightmares at night, and I would bet you money that this really happened to me, but when I would wake up from my nightmares, I could feel angels over me comforting me. So I knew God at an early age. But then one time when I was heading toward confirmation in the Catholic Church, we had to take catechism classes. And so I was doing my catechism classes. At the same time, my mom's best friend died of ovarian cancer. She was about 32 years old, and it was really heartbreaking for our whole family. My mom was really impressed with the pastor that did her best friend's funeral and eulogy, and he was a Methodist pastor from the church down the road. So she decided we were going to go visit the Methodist church and see what that was all about. One day in catechism class, I asked my teacher, is it a sin to go and visit another church? And this sincere but well-meaning man told me that I would commit a mortal sin and I would go to hell if we changed churches. So as a 14-year-old, that really affected me from that point on. And that was just, what do you do with that? I love God, but if I go to another church, which I really have no choice in the matter because my mom decided to change to the Methodist church, I'm going to hell. Then we got to the Methodist church and we loved it. It was lively, it was friendly, it was nice. So then I felt guilty for that. But in saying that, I'm very grateful for the roots of faith that the Catholic Church gave me. At one point, I was very angry at the Catholic Church, thinking that they had done it all wrong. Now, as I get older, I realize that every church has mistakes that we make, where we try to teach people, and it can be incorrect teaching because it's based out of fear and judgment. Every church does that. So at that point, I decided, well, I'm going to live life. I'm not dead yet. He hasn't zapped me. So I'm just going to go and live the best life that I can, even though I already know I'm going to hell. I might as well enjoy my life while I'm here and have some fun. So I went off to Colorado, and I got into nature, and I worship nature. And a friend told me that, he believed that at one point we would all just spontaneous combust into oblivion, into a bunch of atoms, and float around with each other, and it would be all good. And then I believed that for a while, and then I made up my own God, and he was part female, part male, because I couldn't connect to a male God that was judgmental. And then I got into New Age because there's a power there, but God always knows what he's doing in our lives. And he knew when it was time to show himself to me again. And at that point, after doing all my thoughts and beliefs, when he presented himself to me, I knew that Jesus was for me. There is no one like Jesus. No one has done what he has done for us. He changed my life. When he came back in, I knew it was him. And I jumped, as a result, now I can say, I can thank that little man in his sincerity for not wanting me to go to hell and in telling me that, because now I realize that maybe it took that journey for me to actually see Jesus in a new way, to where I would fall headlong in love with him, full in, feet in, head in, everything in, my whole life in. If I had never heard that from him, maybe I would be a very nonchalant, mediocre Christian today. But maybe it was because he said that to me. God turns all things for good for those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. Even fears, even judgmental statements, even pain, even abuse, he's waiting to turn everything for our good. He's a good God. So that's my hope, my hopeful message. And it's, we all, I guess I've learned as I've become an adult, be careful about trying to put fear of any kind into other people's lives. Even well-meaning, I'm working on that, that I want to be an encourager and a hopeful message of Christ rather than a fearful message or a worry message or even a sincerely concerned message for another person. God has it. He can handle it. It's in his hands. He knows how to do it better than any of us do. We love each other, and we should encourage each other, and that's it. So, that's all.
Good job, Kelly. My name is Tim Dwarnicek. I've been attending this service probably for about 6 months. Last fall, my wife and I were sitting at one of the local restaurants talking about finding a new church because we're both raised Catholic, and God in his divine wisdom led us to this church, which I'll be forever grateful. Connie, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I think at this time I want to give her the applause she deserves for pulling this off in Jeff's absence. I'm going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's addiction. My addiction led me to a fear of isolation and separation. The behaviors that kept me apart from you, my family, my friends, work, but most importantly, my Creator God. Fear was self-perceived, self-inflicted. It was not real, my fear of separation from God and everything that was important, but it felt real to me. The self-perceived fear of separation also meant I can't ask for help because I'm not worthy. So if you can see that cycle that I found myself in for 12 or 14 years, the behavior of addiction, the feeling of separation and isolation, the unworthiness, can't ask for help, the addiction, it was just a loop that kept going around and around. Well, God, my Creator, he chose the U.S. Post Office to increase the heat and fear of separation in my life. The real separation I was feeling was separation from the railroad, which I had been working at for 15 years. They started sending me these very uncomfortable certified letters in the mail due to my absenteeism, and that caught my attention. The Lost Weekend. It was December of 1981. I was feeling really lost. And January 9th, 10th, and 11th of 1982, I called off for 3 days. That's what I call my lost weekend. And my faith, my long pushed down faith in my Creator came to light because I went and met with a priest that I knew and a nun friend that I knew from a parish in Calumet City, St. Victor's. These two people helped me to enter treatment January 12th, 1982. When I entered the treatment center, almost immediately the same day, the separation, the fear of the separation, the isolation I was feeling started to wane because of a unique individual that I heard speak that first night when I was in treatment. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I was actually acting like I was insane. The behavior I was into, the people that I hurt, the undisciplined, irresponsible person that I was, that's insane. The second step of AA said, I can rely on a power greater than myself. God led me to different people to help me to overcome my personal addiction. Counselors, the AA and the NA program, lots of good support people. God was working behind the scenes this whole time. He was reaching out to me. All I had to do was reach back. Once the addiction cycle was broke, I was able to reach back to my Creator, and I've been hanging on to Him for a long time. I needed a miracle, and I got a miracle. Today, this day, I am sober exactly 33 years and 2 months. And there's not a day that doesn't go by that I thank God for this gift, because it's truly a gift. I couldn't plan this epic story. Everything that happened, all the behind-the-scenes magic that God was doing, I couldn't plan that. It's only years later that I can look back at this and see all the moves that were being made on my behalf. God is great. Amen. I love God. What I like to do is finish with a prayer. This is a prayer that my sponsor recommended to me after about 2 or 3 years of recovery, and this is a prayer that I read every day. Pastor Jeff has talked about healing the separation, and I think the prayer of St. Francis is very good about talking about healing the separation, keeping us connected. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen.
There's one line in the song that I really love, and it says, "Who brings our chaos back into order?"
King of glory. slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Yeah, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I see all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me. Done for me.
Amen. Glory to God.
Let's go out and share God's unfailing love this week. You are dismissed.
Thank you.